You're listening to the Coach's Journey podcast, exposing the struggles and celebrating the successes in the life of coaches who are action takers and creating authentic impact in today's world. Whether you're just starting out, expanding your reach, or exploding your impact, you're in the right place right now. Stay tuned and be sure to subscribe to this podcast. Now, here are your hosts of the Coach's Journey podcast.
Hello, Coaches Nation. Welcome to the Coaching Master Community podcast called The Coach's Journey, because as coaches, we're all on a journey. And today, my name is Daniel, and I'm here with Faisal, your co-host. Both of us are co-hosting our podcast today on sales, a really important topic for coaching and how selling coaching messes with your mind as a coach. So I'm really excited to get into this topic today. Faisal, what are you excited about in our topic?
What I'm excited about is that this was probably one of the most difficult parts of the coaching business I had to learn, and I'm still learning. It's not an easy process, especially if you come from a background where this was not a normal part of your world. Sales really does mess with your head because we have all sorts of perceptions about it and all sorts of ways of looking at it that's not helpful. And happens to be that the number one skill you need to learn to build your coaching business is actually sales. It's despite the most coaches' belief that it's marketing, it's not. It's sales. If you can figure out sales, you can suck at marketing. You'll still have clients.
Eventually. And marketing is a whole different animal, which we I think we talked about last podcast or maybe podcast before. But yeah, I'm excited about this because I think this can be a huge sticking point for coaches. And there's a lot of fear that goes along with sales. And a lot of it's very personal. And, as a coach, like a lot of us as coaches, we help people with the things that they take personally. And so as a coach, I'm really excited to talk about this because it's something that I've taken personally myself too personally in this, like the results from sales and not realizing that there's a skill set involved and worrying about what does this mean about me? And so like having gone through that journey of, and we all still go through it as coaches, it's just a different level of attachment and a different level of taking it personally that we need to get to in order to sell. And there's this irony in sales that in coaching that you have to be unattached in ways that don't come intuitively or automatically for most people, I would say.
Yeah.
Like if you want the sale, you have to not want the sale that way.
Yeah, and this is why it's so. I think it's so. It can be very counterintuitive. Before we jump into the topic, I do want to share for the community that's listening live, and also for those who are listening to the podcast. If you're trying to build your own business, don't do it alone. One of the first things I learned, one of the first things that actually worked that I learned to not do this process alone. And by the way, no business owner in the right mind builds a business on their own. They will have advisors. They will have people that they work with. They will have a team. And the online world is a unique world that has come around, especially the coaching in the online world, where you are crazy enough to not talk to other business owners and try to build a business.
Like I started that way too.
We all started that way, but we struggled in the beginning because of that. It's like we're trying to figure out all sorts of things. It's hard enough to begin with. Don't do it alone. Join our community. You can join our Facebook group by going into one of the links below. You're going to get support from our community. We give tons of content for free that you will get charged in other programs. And I really mean that. And you can test it out for yourself. And what you will get is a supportive community of coaches who are actually building their coaching business and they're asking questions. And we have live masterclasses, sessions that we discuss topics around your business, sales, and all sorts of things that will actually help you move your business forward. Now, I'm talking about this, but I'm also selling this to you. I just wanted to demonstrate that this is selling.
So you know. Selling is such an interesting word too, because like I think, and just go build on your point, Faisal. As coaches, we tend to think of ourselves as a coach. I want to be a coach. That's what I want to do. I want to coach people. And then the idea of being a business builder or a business owner is not the primary identity. And because of that, it's also like the identity of being a seller and a salesperson is not the primary identity. And in fact, there's often a negative identity. Like I don't want to be a business person and I don't want to be a salesperson. I don't want to do those stuff. I want to just coach. And the challenge with that mindset is you think it's different from coaching, because like selling and coaching, as Faisal just demonstrated, we're selling all the time. There's plenty of situations which you're selling, which is helping people choose something that you want them to choose. And hopefully you're helping them choose something that's for their benefit, which is often, with coaching, it's a mutual benefit thing. They're paying you, but you're also providing them a valuable service. And like this resistance that we have to like actually selling something is pervasive, I think, in the coaching industry, especially for new coaches, because we don't see ourselves as business people and salespeople. And I think one of the reasons for that is like we look at other business people that we don't like, salespeople that we don't like. We have all these experiences, these programs from society and culture and whatever, groups that we're part of, and we don't see things we don't like, and we think that's what we have to be to do those things. And we don't have to do those things. We can do selling and business a different way.
Yeah, and I'll blame this. I'll do blame today. I'll be pointing fingers at it in the eyes. The coach is like, "What? That as a coach?" So I'll put part of the blame on the pop culture. Actually, when you're actually looking at think about the movies that you've watched, think about the stories that you've heard from other people, think about the way that people talk about business owners and salespeople, wealthy people, and it goes down to the money. Like all the things that we've heard since child, especially this generation, since child, especially if we are in a community where money is not really the thing. Like I come from a background where money was not a big thing. Like nobody had money. And so everybody, anytime you would talk about people who had money, they would be looked at in a negative light. Is there a possibility that people ran into crazy people who had money and they weren't nice people, good people? Of course, there are good people in every circle. Like one of the biggest lessons I have from my dad is like, he doesn't even remember this as a child when I was sitting with him and he was making breakfast. I don't know why it came up. We were talking about some school stuff. I was maybe 8 years old, 9 years old, 10. Like he raised his hand and he's like, you see my fingers? He's like, are they equal lengths? I think I was talking about a group of people in my school. He's like, just like your fingers are not the same length, you will never find people who are going to be the same in every group. It's like you're going to find good, bad, all sorts of people in every group. I don't care if you pray and you think that they're in your family or somebody else. That became one of my best lessons. I brought this up to my dad. He's like, I don't even remember that, which is interesting. Anyway, so with the point is that like we've been taught all sorts of things about sales, or we've heard stories and alibis that one teacher called about this, that in our mind confirms that sales is a negative thing. And I actually got this book from Brendan. I think Brendan Burchard gave us this book like 5 years ago in one of his events. Daniel and I were both in that event. And as I was reading through that, I'm like, holy shit, I believe all of these things. And he also talks about like how much the world of sales has shifted because of the accessibility to information has dramatically changed. It used to be that, for example, if you walked into a car dealership, the information for the car was mostly available for the car dealership themselves. The customer didn't know much, but now your customers know more about you than you know more about.
Yeah, this is actually a really interesting paradox, right? It's like, or phenomenon rather, where the inequality of information is going away, so we used to associate sales with like, oh, somebody's going to sell something to me that I didn't need, or I didn't get a good deal on, or somebody took advantage of me. That was a lot easier to see in the past, where you had this asymmetry of information between the seller and the buyer. But today, buyers are way more informed. And so selling it's harder to make it that sort of take advantage mentality. People are rejecting that a lot faster now. And so that's the thing about coaching and about honestly everything. Selling is becoming very mutual now. Even when you go to a store, you already know, like if I go to Best Buy, I already know the prices out there. So maybe I want the Best Buy guarantee, or maybe I want whatever, but like people can't take advantage of you the same way that they used to. And also that's the thing about coaching. When you're selling coaching, you're not taking advantage of people. That's another thing that's really important to understand. If you think you're taking advantage of somebody, then you have to make some shifts as a coach in what you're doing, because there's a lot of value to what you can bring as a coach. And if you can see it as valuable, see it from somebody else's perspective and how valuable it could be for them, then you're not necessarily taking advantage of them, but you have to get that out of your head.
Yeah, and then there are two weird things in our, like, when I was starting out, like, why would even I had a hard time with this question, like, why would somebody pay for this?
Yeah, totally.
Like, I had a hard time with that because it was so normal to me, because I had spent decades and years thinking about these kind of things. I'm like, this is normal stuff. Until I started getting on calls and I realized, like,
Other people
people
haven't.
is like they haven't done this work. It's a very different shift. And the other thing was, like, as you're saying that, like, our belief, if you have a resistance towards offering something, if you have a resistance towards asking for money, if you have resistance towards talking about your program, just as a coach, you know that if a client had resistance there, you know that there is some kind of belief, that you know that there's some kind of emotional and thought process that stops you from doing that thing. We all have them. And the reason for that is we have stories over stories over stories that we have kind of downloaded in our head and haven't questioned it. And this is one of those, by the way. And coaches, even though they question a lot of things, this is one of the things that they probably haven't questioned, because this is a new world that you're walking into, the business world. When you go in, you will pretty much have to question almost everything you understand about the real world, because we were all taught we all came from the from a education system that taught us to be workers. They didn't teach us to be people who create a life, who create a business, or create money in the process, or at least attract it. We were taught to work for somebody. So a lot of the training was not around sales. It was not around marketing. It was not around how to build relationships, develop them. It was not around planning. Coaches know this very well. How many of us were taught how to plan for our future? Like all the schooling that we went to. So we've questioned a bunch of stuff, but we haven't. And as soon as you jump into the sales world, this is a completely different challenge, the business world. And one of the first challenges is actually questioning your own beliefs around money, sales. Why do I have resistance around it? And this is why you need to be having more sales calls, so you can actually deal with your resistance, because you're not going to be able to do it if you don't go into the experience.
Yeah, and the sales thing, it messes with your mind so much because you have these resistances that Faisal's talking about. Like, for example, it's like, especially early in the coaching journey, it's like, am I good enough? Like, am I a human good enough? Like, you're judging yourself and your value based on whether you're good enough. In fact, is your program valuable enough, or is your service good enough? Is really a better question. And sometimes it's really easy to judge ourselves, and so then we don't sell because we're afraid that we're not good enough. And I always my mind always goes back to that line in Back to the Future with Marty McFly's dad. He's like, I just don't know if I could take that kind of rejection. When he's talking about asking Lorraine to the dance or whatever. And it's like, as coaches, I went through this myself, and I went through some coaching rejections. Like, I would finally get up the courage to make an offer, and then I'd get turned down. I'd be like, oh, and that set me back for like weeks. And I wouldn't be willing subconsciously to make another offer. And so I'd get about being busy doing all the other things, because I didn't know that that's part of A, no's are part of the game, and B, no's don't always mean no forever. It means I'm not ready yet sometimes. And so, like, that's one thing that messes with your mind, is like your own self-worth and your ability to take things personally that you don't need to take personally. It's just feedback for you to improve. And it means you need to keep on going. And not only is it like your own sense of self-worth, but you also don't necessarily have as much confidence as you need to know that you're going to be actually delivering something valuable. So, for example, the first time I had a paid client, I wasn't super confident that I could deliver value and that I could make it worth it for that client. I didn't believe in it enough because I didn't have enough experience doing it until I was actually able to see some changes in people's lives as a result of what I was doing. I was a little bit shaky, and it made it a lot harder to sell the coaching. To be honest, like, I was afraid to sell it because I didn't see it. But after I had enough people go through coaching with me, and I saw some of the things I can do, some of the things I saw in the clients' lives, I started getting inspired by my clients, and then I raised my confidence. So when you start seeing results with your coaching with clients, then you start getting more confidence. And you don't have to have the confidence to sell, but you have to have at least the confidence to know that you could make that difference. And sometimes you can do that pro bono to get that confidence, and sometimes you can do paid. You won't find out unless you actually try, right? You're going to have that first client that you make a paid offer to. You're going to have that. And so at that point, you're going to have to, it's like you have to cross that bridge. There's no other way to build a coaching business, unless you're independently wealthy, in which case this doesn't apply to you. And it still technically applies to you because if people don't pay for coaching, there's a whole different dynamic that happens.
So, and unless you don't want to get paid for coaching, which is not a business model.
That's not the question we're here to talk about today.
Yeah. So I love what you're saying. And this is just to backtrack for it. And the reason why we keep saying that sales is one of the most important skill sets is because pretty much a lot of the efforts that you have in your coaching business for you to build a business, and you will see that as you start to reach out to people, as you connect with people, whether you go speak on a stage or whether you run a workshop or whether you reach out to people individually, it involves getting in conversation with people. And part of that conversation, at the end of it, you're making some kind of offer, or at some part of that process, customer journey, you're making an offer. And that process is a sales process. If you don't gain the skill set around that, there is no business. You could be amazing. And I actually ran into one of the things I was surprised by is that there are coaches who had, and I ran into a couple of coaches at one of the events we went to recently, and she's like, I have close to 10,000 followers on social media, and there's like, and I literally asked her that, I'm like, what's your offer? She's like, I have no offer.
Well, that's probably why you're not making any sales.
And here's the thing. And I could tell him, like, why don't you have an offer? He's like, I kind of have an offer, but I'm scared to make the offer. Her resistance was in sales. It was not a marketing challenge. In fact, she had a lot more followers. I'm like, I would bet that if these followers, you've been nurturing them for this long and they're the right people, if you make the offer, a small percentage of them will sign up for your program. And I told him, like, I'm making a lot more than you. The biggest difference is, and I don't have anywhere people near that are following me, but I have a functioning business because I actually walk them through a process and I make an offer. And so that's why we're saying this, that this needs to become part of your process. So the first part we talked about is that you will have resistance. And the way to deal with the resistance is do the work, get your coach, do the background work to deal with that, or assess it within yourself. Part of it is actually go do calls, sales calls. Like, I don't care if you do it pro bono or paid, find people to coach and make an offer. Just coach and make an offer. Do as many proposals and offers as you can, because that process will teach you to deal with the resistance. And the other one is, we didn't talk about it enough. We shared about the book. Start getting books like this. Like, literally all you have to do is go on, like, get Prosperous Coach, get To Sell Is Human, get Brian Tracy's The Psychology of Selling. But you can go on Amazon, look at all the sales books that are rated above 4.5, 4, and just start reading them. Like, if you just made it a goal to read like 10 sales books, you will be much better at sales. Plus, if you're doing the work, not
you don't
just
have to read 10. You can just read 1 or 2 or 3, and you'll be so far ahead. Like, there's one book would be so worth it, right? And after you read that book, you're like, okay, maybe I should continue developing my skill set, because I want to take something, Faisal, you just said, and really make it really real. There's a math to this, and there's a skill set to this. It's not this like amorphous blob that you can't figure out. It's not this monster that you have to face. I mean, you have your own internal barriers and demons that you face for sure, but it is totally conquerable. It's totally conquerable. And there's 2 pieces of it. One is experience, as Faisal said. Do it over, just do it. Who cares if you get the sales? You're doing it to practice, right? And if you can unattach yourself from getting the sale, just get people on those discovery calls, make an offer, knowing that you're going to get, and here's where the math comes in, you're going to get a bunch of no's. And as Faisal said, in that group of 10,000 people, you make an offer and a small percentage of people might be buying that up, right? What that implies mathematically is that a very large percentage of people will not buy that offer. So whatever offer you make, just assume there's going to be a percentage. It could be 10%, it could be 1%, it could be 5%, it could be 25%, depending what your offer is and who you're targeting. At the beginning, it doesn't matter what your conversion percentage is, because you need the experience of actually practicing making an offer. And so the most valuable thing you can do to get sales practice is to just get as many people as you can on calls. Fill your calendar with pro bono calls. Even pro bono clients can be valuable, but make the offer and see if it doesn't work, and see if it works. And you can always, if you need more coaching experience, you can always say, like, hey, if that doesn't work for you, give me a number. You can tell the client, like, what word worked, and then they can tell you and be like, okay, I'll do it for that much, right? You can negotiate, and you don't have to make a huge deal of it. Just say, hey, you want to continue? Here's how much it costs. And whatever that number was that you came up with in advance, then say what they think about it. And like, you can practice the whole objection thing and the whole coaching them through their decision. But to me, the most important piece of being able to sell is being confident that you can help them, that you want to help them, that you care enough to help them, and that it's going to make a difference in their life. Like if you spend time with someone 6 times or 12 times or 18 times over a period of time, just them being able to express things to you, if you don't say a word, that's still going to be valuable because nobody has that space in their life. So if you're doing a little more than that, it's going to be a little more valuable, most likely. So like, remember how to figure out you have value to provide. The space you create is a value in itself, and just get out there and practice and put them on the calendar.
Yeah, and also one thing you alluded to before, Daniel, which is it's a really important piece of this, and I want to talk about this from a business perspective, but coaching perspective. So you talked about it in 2 ways. One, that you need to build confidence. 2, you need to hold on, I don't want to miss that point. Okay, I'll come back to that. But the confidence piece as a coach, it's so important in sales. And this is something like Wayne Dyer, when he put out his first book, I think it was his first book, where he literally drove around and started knocking on people's doors. Like, here, take the book. Like he was giving people, because he was so confident in his message. He's like, people need to hear this message. So I always ask coaches, like, why aren't you kind of talking to everybody about your coaching process? Because you don't have enough experience, and you don't know if this actually works. You don't fully know because you don't have enough data on it. You haven't talked to enough people. And how do you gain that? And this is a big part. This is what makes our community really unique. Most business programs you go to, they will get you to think about prospecting, sales, marketing, and all that stuff, but they won't go towards, hey, where are your skill sets at as a coach? You need to develop your skill sets. That requires you to give yourself feedback. That requires you to ask other business owners and coaches for feedback. That requires you to be in a community, to mastermind around what are the things that are currently working in coaching and what are the things that are not working. If you're not doing those things, definitely join our community. Go to one of the links below. It's free to join our Facebook group. And we do have paid programs after that where you can join to move your business forward. But even the free community will give you a lot in the process. So that piece is really, really important. And ask yourself, why aren't you promoting your business enough? And that's a confidence issue. And a lot of sales is actually a transfer of certainty and confidence and emotions around certainty. Because if you're confident, the other person feels confident to do it. Now, some people can fake it, but for most people, when you see the results that you've given to other people, your confidence will come from that. Like when people share with you their testimonials, they tell you in their sessions that this is how, and that's what you will be communicating in your sales process. So that you could get better at the sales process and techniques and stuff, but if your coaching is not working, it doesn't matter. Which it comes to the other point I was trying to say, I forgot. If you look at it from the business point of view, you are, and I think Daniel said, is like a lot of coaches will feel like this thing is that you feel rejected. And we take the rejection in this process personally, because our coaching process is intertwined with us. Like it's not a separate product like this.
You're not selling a remote control, right?
You're not like, it's hard to separate. And in fact, I was speaking at an event, I'm like, learn to separate your service from you. Like it is a part of you, but the way the marketplace works is that you need to make this product as good as possible, so people want to buy it and refer that product to other people, that service. And for you, that's your coaching process. That means that from a business point of view, that product gets so good that you can function without any marketing. You can function with referrals alone. Those are the best kind of businesses anyway. But those 2 points, if you remember them, then you're going to put an effort in sales, learning the skill of sales, and learning to be a really good coach so you can build your product, get enough testimonials, getting enough people results so you can promote it better and have the confidence to promote it. And I think we'll leave it at that. If you can just deal with that resistance by doing the work and actually studying this and building the skill sets, you will be ahead of 90% of the coaches.
Yeah, we actually have a discovery session masterclass that we have done in the past. Reach out to us and let us know if you're interested in that. It helps you go through the process of the actual discovery session, how to think about selling your coaching. But more important than that, building confidence and building experience in the offer and selling game it's like super critical. Like if you don't do that, you're just always gonna just get. So think of a selling not as something to overcome, but something to practice. It's like do the push-ups. If you do 100 push-ups a day, you're gonna build some muscle. If you do 10 push-ups a day, you're gonna build some muscle. Whatever number of push-ups you can do right now, start doing that and take it as a muscle building activity, not as a personal attack if you get rejected activity.
Yeah. And just one last point in sales, like Rich Levin says, yes lives in the land of no's. If you get enough no's, then yes is just inevitable. In fact, one of the exercises he gets people to follow, which I love, is that instead of being afraid of no's, make it a game to figure to see how many no's can you collect in a week, in a given week.
How good are you getting no's? Because that's the key, right? If you're measuring the yeses, it may take you a while to get any good feedback. But if you're measuring the no's, like, oh, I got my no today, I got my no tomorrow. All of a sudden, one day it's not going to be a no. It's not going to be the no. It's going to be you got a yes. And so I love that. The game of getting no's is great.
And as soon as I said that, it reminded me of my offer. So since last week, I've made 4 offers. Only one of them has gone through. I know one of them will be followed up with. The other 2 will not go through for now, at least for the next little while. For me, and I'm gonna make 2 or 3 more offers this week. Out of the 7 offers, maybe 2 or 3 will go through. That's just the nature of this business, and I've learned the more offers
you're very experienced.
I'm very experienced. So keep in mind, there's a lot that you might have to start small. But what I'm saying is that the point that I'm trying to make is the more offers you make, the more chance you have is to sign up people. And you won't make offers unless you run people through your sales process, unless you even understand that you need to walk people through your sales process, and unless you're even open to making those kind of offers. So this is why this is like so many layers in there. Start with being open to doing this. Go do your research, learn, gain the knowledge, build the skill sets with experience. I think you'll be really good. And please share your thoughts and questions or anything you want to below for us to answer. We'd love to answer them. Join our community. It's on Facebook. It's for free. And you're going to get a lot of value from our community.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us for the podcast today. Join us next week. We do this podcast once a week, and you will get a ton of value out of that. And we'd love to see you in our community. So until then, have a fantastic week, and we'll see you next time.
Take care. Bye.
You're listening to the Coach's Journey Podcast.